What's so funny? Do I amuse you? Am I a
Are all your
clown?
videos.
You keep freezing on my screen, so it's just like your poses that you freeze. You're like,
It's very on brand. You should just start all your videos that way. What's so funny? Oh,
What's
yeah,
so
no fun
funny?
allowed. Straight up.
So, when it comes to the games that we both run and play, I presume all of you have both played and or ran some games, at least one or two. In fact, I know that all of you are nerds and have done quite a fair few of gamings. But the thing is while all of us have ran and played in our fair share of games, there is that one game, the one that gets away, that one adventure that you want to run, the system that you want to play in, the thing you want to do. What is that white whale for you? What is that adventure or that system or that thing you desperately want to run or play in? Wally, kick things off.
well, I am running 5th edition games, and so far I have run Dragon Heist is the only one that I've run. So the next logical one that I would want to run next is not a 5th edition game. This is Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Against the Cult of the Reptile God. Arguably one of the best modules for Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, and it could possibly be done in 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 sessions tops. And this is the one I want to run. I was supposed to start running it in January. Things got caught up, and I have not run it yet. So, Against the Cult of the Reptile God, I am going to try to make a point of it to run it in 2022 with 5th edition rules.
But what if you ran it using AD&D rules?
Well, I forgot all of my AD&D knowledge. So while I have all the books there, I am a lazy dungeon master. I already know 5e, and it's easy for me to say, troglodytes, okay. And I can just convert troglodytes into 5, oh, actually, it's already done for me. They're in the monster manual.
The best part about those old ones is the tiller has exactly 17 copper and 13 silver hidden under the cupboard in this part of the room, and like that, like there's literally a whole block on like where everyone keeps their stash. It's so dumb and yet it's so fantastic. I freaking
You mean
love
that's
it.
better than the blue maps, the blue grids?
Yeah.
Fun fact:
Oh.
do you know why the maps are blue?
Yes, I do.
Alrighty, for the audience who may not know, it's because
Copy.
yes, if you attempted to copy it, it would come out undone essentially. So very smart on their thinking, honestly.
Anti-piracy.
Alrighty, Blanco, what's your white whale? What's the game that you've been wanting to run for so long?
I never got to run my original campaign in Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay 2nd Edition. And I rewrote it to run it in 5e, and I've run that in 5e about, I want to say like 5 times so far. But it was really geared specifically to the systems in Warhammer Fantasy 2nd Edition, like the trading system, the social systems, even like the gossip system in that thing. So it even had specifically like a lot of setup stuff for the drunken rules of the game. And I keep on trying to like piecemeal together similar stuff in 5e and try to like use the Warhammer Fantasy rules as much as I can. But yeah, I would really like to run that campaign that I wrote because I think it really is a good like social political intrigue campaign, really specifically that would work really well in a game like Warhammer Fantasy. So
Yes. And once again, for those of you that don't know, in Warhammer Fantasy, fighting is scary and it's to be avoided. So,
yes.
Interesting.
yeah. So, very important to consider that in the Warhammer game, getting drunk is a hell of a lot better than, fighting some rat man. Alrighty. Flutes. What's the white whale? What's that game that you've been wanting to run?
It's actually a homebrew concept where I basically want to give a medieval feel or basis and give it more of like an 80s synth feel to it. Like I want to have a lot of like minerals in the land that have meaning for like arcane magic and stuff, but they also glow. So like at nighttime there's often like bioluminescent plants and stuff. So it's just like very lively at night. I've got a lot of like artwork and music. Like when I ran Curse of Strahd, a lot of my inspiration came from Dance with the Dead, their album Her Ghost, and that's like how I always got hyped up for like the final fight was listening to that. And that just really I really want to hash it out, but it's taken me a lot of time to like really get a concept in the macro that I like. So I did a lot of homebrew worlds when I first got started, and then I've been doing modules with my friends recently. But I really, when I run a homebrew game again, I really want to run this like 80s synth feel medieval type campaign, and I'm not sure if everyone's going to be on board with it because I like their usual fantasy JRPG, um, two steps from hell type music, and I want to switch that up, the aesthetic and the music a little bit. That's how I want to do it.
Well, I think the mindset to have is you're gonna run it and they're gonna like it.
That's the hope.
No, there is
Strap
no
in.
hope. There is only do. For me personally, the white whale that I have on the horizon is actually much closer than the horizon. I'm writing a whole, basically, the best way to describe it is a hex crawl mega dungeon. It is a reverse mega dungeon crawl where you start off at the bottom and are trying to climb your way to the top to get back to civilization and to the surface. And I will be using a old school system, probably just maybe old school essentials for that. And I'm going to be running it, and it's going to be a big old classic, hex crawl and mega dungeon adventure. And I certainly cannot wait to run that and to publish that, and it's going to be fan-friggin-tastic.
Sounds fun.
Very cool. I really liked the did you ever play Baldur's Gate 2? The expansion had Watcher's Keep, which was a mega dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
That was so cool, and you could like kind of go to it and come back later. I'd like to have that sort of thing in a campaign too. Like a dungeon that you always know is there and it's crazy big. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, I think Mega Dungeon play is an art that has been almost lost because of the aforementioned in the previous one, with a lack of exploration rules. Mega Dungeons seem to not be as present. The one Mega Dungeon we do have for 5th edition, sadly, I don't believe was received that well by the community, Dungeon of the Mad Mage. While Dungeon of the Mad Mage does have a lot of great things going on for it, especially some of the individual levels, I think, I'm part of like the Discord, and I think by this point, only a handful of groups have ever actually completed it purely as written, because one, it takes like 3 freaking years to complete, but 2, once again, because, right now a lot of people run adventures differently. So I think that there should be a return to the Mega Dungeon style play where you just keep on hacking away at something, and you see that progress meter just slowly filling up. You build up your own maps, and you do good stuff.
Trevor, for me who's not familiar with the old rules, what is an example of an exploration rule that you think lends well to mega dungeons?
Something I would say would be basically the idea that you cannot rest in the dungeon. The idea that the dungeon wants to kill you. The idea that of balance. I think that's one of the best ways to go about it. In 5th edition, a lot of times we go into the idea that we go into balanced encounters. We balance the encounters for the day. We balance. But something to consider with a lot of old school stuff was you simply don't balance it. You simply say, hey, there's the dungeon. You can stay there as long as you want. But if you stay in there forever, you're going to die because there is no long rest. You only recover, depending on the edition, 1 to 3 HP a day. So, with that in mind, you can spend some time in the dungeon, but, you ain't spending there forever because you will eventually get attritioned out. So that constant going in and coming back out is definitely one part of it.
Yeah, I think I have an old school heart because I don't really balance encounters, so I'm good there. But now that talking about Baldur's Gate again, I remember like if you rested out in the wilderness, you just like often got fully healed if you didn't get ambushed. But if you're in a dungeon, it was a lot more difficult. And so I can see what you're saying there. Yeah. And I have a lot of friends who like to mess with rest rules in 5e. So there's like different rules if you're in like a sheltered place as opposed to like somewhere you're vulnerable. So yeah, I can get behind that.
Mm-hmm. Another example, go on.
I played a lot of basic D&D mixed in with some first edition, and some of the most treasured magic items that the players had were like a sword plus one cure light wounds once per day and healing potions because like No Fun said, you got back 1 hit point every day plus I think maybe plus your con modifier, but that was it. So if you're like even like level 5 or whatever and you've got like 20 some hit points, you go down to 1, you're going to wake up at like 4. It's just it's brutal, and it's fun though. It's survival, and it really makes you think, and I like that idea of unbalanced encounters. Know when to know when to get out of there, or if it's something that you can fight, because I think a lot of times I see it anyway, that it seems like every encounter is like, oh well, this is set where we could win, but we should probably try to talk to him, but sometimes it just doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. Alrighty, we've discussed our white whales, the adventures that we want to run, and the adventures we plan on running very soon. Go ahead and tell us your white whales. What's that adventure you've been planning on running, that system you want to try out, the game that you want to play in? Go ahead and tell us those things, because I would love to hear it. That's another yeah, so that was another thing too, is the only way you could possibly put yourself in the dungeon is if you built a barricade, but then it comes down to, do the monsters just break down the barricade? The monsters rearm traps outdoors? Do the monsters do this and that?